For lesson 97, we're going to talk about transversals. So a line that intersects two or more other lines is a transversal. So in the drawing, line R is a transversal of lines S and T. Okay. Notice in the drawing, lines S and T are not parallel. Okay. Below, on the bottom one, we show parallel lines M and N intersected by transversal P. Notice that 8 angles are formed. You can see by the numbers. In this figure, there are 4 obtuse angles. All our odd angles are obtuse, 1, 3, 5, and 7. And we have 4 acute angles, the even-numbered angles. You can see I have some labels out here. Anything that's on the outside of these 2 parallel lines are going to be exterior angles. Anything on the inside between the 2 parallel lines are interior angles. Notice that the obtuse angle 1 and acute angle 2 together form a straight line. These angles are supplementary, which means the measure total 180 degrees. So if angle 1 is 110 degrees, then angle 2 has to be 70 degrees. Also notice that 2 and 3 are supplementary, they form a straight line. So if angle 2 is 70, angle 3 has to be 110, and we can keep going on and on with angles 3 and 4. There are names to describe some of the angle pairs. For example, angles 1 and 5 are corresponding angles because they are in the same relative position. They're in the same position of the 2 parallel lines. Notice that angle 1 is in the upper left angle from line M, and angle 5 is the upper left angle from line N. Angles that have the same relative positions when they are located in similar places. Such angles have equal measures. So when we talk about angles in relative position, we are referring to equal angles. So that says angles 1 and 5 are going to be equal. So which angle corresponds to angle 2? If you said angle 6, you are correct. So angles 2 and angle 6 are going to be equal in measure. Which corresponds to angle 7? Should have said angle 3. Since lines M and N are parallel, line P intersects line M at the same angle as it intersects line N. So the corresponding angles are congruent, thus we know that if angle 1 is 110 degrees, we can conclude that angle 5 is 110 degrees. So by knowing one angle in all of these 8 angles, we can figure out the rest. Because they're either going to be supplementary or corresponding, where we can find the supplements. The angles between the parallel lines, 3, 4, 5, and 6, are interior angles. They're in between the parallel lines. And if we look at angle 3 and angle 5, they're on opposite sides of the transversal and are called alternate interior angles. So alternate interior angles are congruent if the lines intersected by a transversal are parallel. Okay. So if angle 5 measures 110 degrees, then angle 3 is also 110 degrees. So angles 3 and 5 are alternate interior angles. They're equal in measure and they're on opposite sides of transversal. They're both inside. What's another pair? 4. That should be angles 4 and angle 6 are alternate interior angles. Angles that are not between the parallel lines are exterior angles. So angle 1 and angle 7 are on opposite sides of transversal. They're equal in measure, so they're alternate exterior angles. What's another pair? Should be angles 2 and angle 8. Alternate exterior angles formed by a transversal intersecting parallel lines are congruent. So if angle 1 is 110 degrees, angle 7 is 110 degrees. So exterior are outside, interior inside. Alternate interior, they're inside and they're equal on opposite side transversal. Exterior, they're alternate exterior angles. They're on the outside of our parallel lines and they're equal on opposite sides of transversal. So when we practice the terms for describing angle pairs, it's useful to remember the following. When a transversal intersects parallel lines, all acute angles formed are equal in measure and all obtuse angles are equal in measure. So if we have parallel lines with the transversal, all acute angles are the same, all obtuse angles are the same. Thus, any acute angle is going to be supplementary to any obtuse angle. So if we take any of the acute angles plus any of the obtuse angles, we're going to get 180 degrees. So let's try the example. It says transversal W intersects parallel lines X and Y. It says name the pairs of corresponding angles. So what angles are corresponding? Let's start with A. Angle A and should be angle E. They're in the same relative position. So angle B, angle F, angle C, and angle G, angle D, angle H. So they're in the same relative position on the two parallel lines. Letter B says name the pairs of alternate interior angles. Interior, so all I'm looking at is C, D, E, and F. So let's start with angle C, alternate interior, so they need to be opposite of the transversal, inside, equal measure, what's the angle E. So then angle D and angle F are going to be a pair. For C, alternate exterior angles, we have angle A, and angle G, angle B, and angle H. And so they're outside of our parallel lines, they're equal in measure, and they're on opposite sides of the transversal. Letter D says that if the measure of angle A is 115 degrees, then what are the measures of angles E and F? So A is 115 degrees, and I want E and F. Well, if angle A is 115 degrees, we talked about how alternate or corresponding angles are equal in measure. And since A and E correspond, E needs to be 115 degrees. Okay. We also said that if they form a straight line, they're going to be supplementary. And E and F form a straight line Y. So if I take 180 minus 115, I should get F. Okay. So F should be 65 degrees. Okay. Now, let's go through the rest and figure out what all the angles are. So we say if we know one, we can find all of them. So if this A is 115 degrees, B has to be 65 because it's cubed. C is obtuse, it has to be 115. D, 65. G is obtuse, 115. H, 65 degrees. So by knowing one, we can find the rest. So go ahead, try the practice set. See if you can get figured out. Make sure you bring any questions you may have to class.